Triathlon returns once again to Hungary and Tiszaujvaros as the festival of triathlon once again hits this beautiful town for the weekend. We kick things off this Sunday morning with the climax of the junior women's event. The semi-finals taking place yesterday, of course. Alongside myself, Oliver Wilson, is Helen Jenkins today to take us through all of the action. We've got the junior men coming up and then the elites take over later on in the afternoon as well. It's an action-packed day, as it always is on the Sunday here in Tisza. And Helen, there's nothing really quite like this place, is there, on the calendar?
No, this is one of my favourite World Cups of the season, and there's always such a great atmosphere at the event. There's always crowds there watching, and I love the fact that the juniors get to race on the same days as the elite. They're such a part of the whole festival of triathlon, and I think for the juniors, they get to race junior cups throughout the year in their different continents, but I think this is one of the only ones where it's the same day, it's televised, you can watch it live. I think it's such a big thing for these athletes, and I hope they really enjoy the experience today.
Well, you can see some of them just making their way out onto the pontoon. Tisza always excites, it's fast, it's furious, it's frenetic action across a weekend where athletes young and old get set to participate. It's certainly a weekend the whole town really does get wrapped up in the triathlon world. It's more like a three-day party than anything else here in Tisza. The fans and the locals have been taking it all in across the last 48 hours or so. I didn't see you making any moves down there at the festival in the evening, Helen, I have to say, but there were plenty of moves being made out on the course over the last couple of days when it's come to the semi-final action. Both the elite men and elite women providing plenty of drama. The theatre of triathlon now gives the opportunity for the young guns to perhaps make a huge jump in their careers and impress on such a grand stage. And that is something we're looking at, I suppose, today, Helen, that this is an opportunity to test some of the younger athletes at an occasion that is like nothing else that they'll probably expect in this field this season in terms of the junior events that we have at an air temperature of around about 30 degrees or so. It's very warm indeed. There's very little cloud cover, just a little bit of a breeze sweeping across the park. That we start with the swim, of course, that takes in such a short course and a very tight, narrow swim as well that can get very congested very quickly, even with just 30 athletes in the field.
Yeah, this is a tight swim, 2 laps for the 500 metres, and we just see the course here.
They'll go out from the pontoon, make their way around the boys twice before then looping their way in towards transition, out onto the bike, 5 laps to make up a 12.5 kilometre bike course for the juniors today. It's flat and fast. There's that one dead turn just at the top of the course before they come back down past the water, down the bottom of the park, back into transition, where they'll go out onto the run, 3 laps, making up the 3.6 kilometre course through the park, where there will be a little bit of shade from those trees. The last part of each lap is going to be right in the sun's gaze, but they'll all just be gazing at the blue carpet and the finish line on the horizon.
One of the things I love about this course, it is so tight and compact. It means that if you're there as a spectator, you get to see the athletes so many times on the course. But for some of these athletes, 5 laps on the bike, there is the chance of being lapped out because it's a junior field, there's 30 women. Some of the slower athletes, they've got, they are going to be a long way behind these leaders. We have got some of the best juniors in the world here, with Aspen Anderson wearing number 1 coming in today. She is a contender for that junior world title, which will be decided in Wollongong later this year. And the fact that it's in Wollongong, she's going to be even more primed to take it. It's her last year as a junior, so she's the one to beat today.
Yeah, just looking to try and dethrone the Australian Jasmine Kropko you just saw there wearing the number 2. Perhaps has the best hopes of the Hungarian athletes, the winner of semi-final 2 yesterday, and of course has had a very strong year already. The junior gold at the World Aquathlon Championships and a podium overall in the elite event. As the athletes line up and get set to get us underway. And you'd expect someone like Kropko, with the swimming prowess she has, to try and make a really strong start. And it's a swim as well here in Hungary, in Tisza, that you certainly, if you do have the ability in the water to try and pull yourself away from the field, it's a really useful asset to have over these laps.
Yeah, we mentioned the 2-lap course. We don't often get 2 laps, especially over the 500 metres. Normally it's a 1-lap 750. So this is unique about Tisza. It's a really tight course. It means having a really fast start is essential. Being able to get out quickly to that first buoy to try and get some clear water. And we know that that's going to be Kropko's plan. She's a great swimmer. I mean, you just mentioned to get overall an elite podium at the World Aquathon Championships, and she's still actually a youth athlete. She's racing in 2009, she's 15, so it's really unbelievable to what these younger athletes can do.
She's one of the ones on just the left-hand side of your screen as you look at it, who's trying to make the headway out there in the water alongside Antonia Balogh as well, another one of the Hungarians. It's a field littered with Hungarians. It's one thing I've noticed across all of the start lists from yesterday. The Hungarian triathletes have come here in full force, and they want to try and dominate the podium as much as possible over the 4 big races that we'll be bringing you today.
Oh, they do. I think I counted 18 athletes in this field Hungarian today. So yeah, they really are kind of coming out and definitely want to get some medals. But obviously it's in Hungary as well, so you'd expect to have a lot. Oh, just look at this congestion around the first buoy. Those athletes stopped there. I saw athlete number, I think that's number 3 there, just coming up for a few breaths.
Yeah, that'd be Corina Katona if it's the number 3, just a 5th start at this sort of level. Best result coming in the Euro Junior Cup in Bled in September last year, a 4th place. So she does have some pedigree in the junior ranks, even if there's maybe a bit of a lack of experience, at least on the World Triathlon sort of stage. You also saw Mira Andras as well getting stopped. She was struggling yesterday in semi-final 1, one of the athletes that was over a minute behind the leaders in the end, off the pace of Aspen Anderson, who went out in semi-final 1 yesterday, set the tone early on and then left everybody very much in her wake, not just in the water but on the bike and on the run as well.
Yeah, and Anderson made it look quite easy in her semi. She definitely was able to cruise into that finish, and with over, I think it's over a 10-second lead on the second athlete.
Laura Stobacci, I think, is just up there alongside Kropko, as those are the 2 out in front right now. And it looks like, is that Petra Ban as well, wearing the number 8, who's just on the heels of those 2 as they start to make their way around the bottom of the swim course. And that 1 of 2 is almost in the books for these athletes. And you can see how small and how congested this lake in the park can get. We only have to have 30 athletes in this field for it to still feel very packed in tight and leave a lot less room and space around those buoys than we're used to expecting. It's also perhaps why we saw a lot of athletes getting a disqualification, or some athletes getting a disqualification against their name across the semi-finals at all levels for corner cutting on the swim course, albeit probably by accident, as we were discussing earlier this morning.
Yeah, we get so many swimmers come up to the buoy at the same time. As we saw, a lot of those swimmers were almost stopped there. And then at that point, I think it's like there's sometimes that panic that sets in, is that because you're being hit around, you're stopped, sometimes you take on water, and people tend to just move sideways or move out the way. They automatically go to give themselves a bit more room. And so it's not necessarily cheating on purpose to try and get a shorter route. It's that sometimes you might just be squished at the buoy, and that's what happens. So yeah, unfortunate for those athletes yesterday. I'm not sure if it's ever that intentional course cutting, but as we see, it does get very compact and tight around the buoys.
It should be said, actually, that the junior women were the semi-finals with the fewest number of incidents in terms of disqualifications and time penalties, etc. It was all relatively smooth across the 2 semi-finals yesterday, although Amalia Maria Sunguran of Romania, who wore number 2 in her semi-final, was unable to make her way into the final today. Perhaps the biggest shock of Saturday's action in the junior women. Out at the front at this moment has been Kropko, is just starting to extend the field a little bit more and stretch it out, and you can see how
much less congested this time round. They're a lot more strung out. I mean, the difference between Kropko going around that first buoy to the back athletes is absolutely huge over such a short space of time. She's really pushing the pace in the swim.
With the bike being so short as well and so fast, if you've got 20-30 seconds on someone in the field, it could be curtains almost for your chance to compete further up the field. This is the woman we're talking about, Jasmine Kropko.
There's Anderson is wearing number 1. I mean, with Kropko, I mean, she comes from a family of triathletes. I mean, her older brother, Martin, will be competing today. Then there's Marta as well, who's been racing on the World Cup level. And they're all fantastic swimmers. She has a twin brother as well, Marta. Jasmine does too. So I'm not sure if he does triathlon as well. But they all swim in swim environments and then do their triathlon. So that outside of that as well. So that in swim programs, that's what they've been doing as younger athletes, which is why they're all such good swimmers. As they've got older, they had other triathlon coaches come in and sort of do a bit more of the running and biking, but they definitely grew up as swimmers, and we can see now that she's just extending that lead out, almost gapping the athlete just behind her. Is that number 8?
Yeah, that does look like it's Petra Ban, experienced athlete, the top seed in semi-final 2 yesterday, who was actually, I think, considered slightly more of a favourite than Jasmine Kropko to be one of the Hungarians expected to be on the podium today and perhaps do what Fanny Salais did last year and have a Hungarian winner at the junior women's event here in Tiszaujvaros.
And Kropko just did a couple of strokes backstroke there, I think, just to see what damage she's doing to the field. And then, yeah, the pace she accelerated. I mean, I think she's pretty comfortable where she is. It doesn't look like to be able to do that, and then she's just putting a couple more metres on the athlete behind her.
Steep climb out of the water, has almost a slight scramble to it, but it's 3 Hungarians in Kropko, Ban and
Sobacki,
excuse me, yeah, coming out of the water are the front 3. It's all a bit more busy and congested after them, however, coming through. 6 Hungarians in the top 6. Addison Hauslip is up there as the next best of the rest. Aspen Anderson and Hannah Manson as well, only 24 seconds back or so. It's 24 seconds, there's not much time to get that back. Julia Ivanova as well, another person that we were certainly expecting to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
Albeit slightly inexperienced, but certainly somebody who's been fast in the swim yesterday, and we expected maybe to be in contact with the leaders coming out today. But Kropko has set an extraordinary time, 6:28, to get herself and her fellow countrymen out in front.
Yeah, I mean, Ivanova, she was led out the semi-final yesterday, so really and that just shows that positioning and what can happen at that first buoy, how much that can affect you. And when we did see Anderson come out, her hat was really pulled back. I mean, she definitely been, well, maybe a bit battered around those first buoys.
Sometimes you have to fight your way through the field a little here in Tiszaujvaros, that's for sure, as Kropko is out on the bike through transition okay, and they make their way out onto 5 laps of a 12.5 kilometre circuit. It's a little bit of coming together just further back there as a couple of the athletes almost sending each other into the advertising hoardings and the barriers on the side of the track. There you see the Swedish athlete Hannah Manson, who we haven't yet discussed, of course, another one with a bit of pedigree to her name in terms of in the world triathlon field, with Tilda Manson coming up later on in the elite women, and of course a former victor here in Tiszaujvaros already, and Hannah looking to follow in her footsteps slightly, but she's got some work to do to catch up with these 3 out in front.
I mean, that's why Tiszaujvaros is such a good race for these junior athletes to do, because whatever happens in any other race, it's never going to be quite as hard a swim as Tiszaujvaros. So if you can get through this swim and really do well and recover from it, it's such good practice for all the other races that you can do. You're really putting yourself in a challenging situation. And for Anderson, who's come in as number 1, she's not in the position she wants to be in. Is she going to be able to fight back from this position? And this is really going to show that grit and determination of how hard she's going to fight to get back towards the front.
See Ledecki and the others from the Hungarian team making their way out as all 30 are through transition and out onto a fast bike course that, as I say, sends them up towards the top of the park with a sharp left turn, 90 degrees, and then a long straight down to the dead turn at the top end of the course. It's certainly a bike course where if you want to start trying to close in some of those up at the front, there is the potential to do that. You can start really exerting some of the power out there on the bike. It's not too technical aside from this dead turn, as you just see Manson going through there in the blue and yellow. Very much feels like a case with such a strong Hungarian field in this junior women. It's pick out the best of the rest almost, particularly with the 3 Hungarians out there at the front.
Yeah, and they're so motivated to come here and do well. I think there's World Championship selection on the line for them today with their juniors. So if they have a good position, good result here today, is going to put them in good stead for making that World Championship team, which is such a big thing as a junior, to make that first junior World Championship team. It's a huge aim, and it's, for some of these athletes, it's their last year as a junior. They really want to have that big finish to the junior career, go out there, become junior world champion, or at least get a medal. It's one of those goals that has a really tight deadline, that you can only do it until you're 19. Then you move to the elites, the under-23s. The under-23 does have that deadline, but it doesn't always seem as pressing, because you get some of the best athletes in the world at under-23. They never do the under-23 World Championships. They kind of go straight to elite. But this junior one, it's a really big thing for the athlete. And I think it shows whether you can set that goal, whether you can go after it, whether you can complete the goal. It's a big ask for a lot of them.
Be careful there, the Austrian Ritter, who's just weaving every so often really close to some of those cones out there on the bike course, just giving enough room to be able to get left and to stay safe as they come down towards the bottom of the park and make that 90-degree left-hand turn, short straight once again, another 90-degree turn before they make their way up the other side of the park once again. This chase group trying to close down the leaders. It's around about a 10-11 second gap between these three and that chasing pack that goes all the way down to around about 17th, 16th or so. Yulia Ivanova of Slovakia, the one is about 30 seconds off at the rear of that group. Certainly working hard to try and rein in the leading three right now. Kobaczki, Ban and Kropko going through though as the leading three, looking very calm and composed. We haven't seen much of them on the bike course early on here in terms of the view of the leaders so far, but whenever we have seen them, seems to be a good rotation up at the front, and they look fairly comfortable working as a trio together. And
16 seconds to the pack behind them, so that's a good gap. They're really going to have to work hard to pull that in, because when we saw eyes on that chase pack, there's some really dedicated athletes at the front really trying to push the pace, and they've got that carrot out front. They've got those athletes, they can see them on those long straights, and they're really putting everything into trying to pull them back.
Certainly nothing worse than being brought back and having to look over your shoulder every so often. Would never suggest that ever happened to you during your time as an athlete, Helen, but I'm sure it's happened at least once or twice. You've been caught by a chasing group.
Oh yeah, you'll know as well, because they might have some time gaps out on course, and they'll know if that gap's coming down, and they're going to see at this dead turn a really good visual then of whether that gap is coming back down.
I suppose it's a catch-22, isn't it? Getting that visual. If you're extending the advantage up at the front, it's great and it gives you confidence to keep going. If you see that advantage slowly just dwindling slightly, you see that the chasing group are suddenly starting to reel you in. Getting that visual, not exactly what you want at this point, but this course here in Tiszaujvaros certainly gives you that as the chasing group comes round, led by one of the Australians. Looks like it's Houslip, I think, who's sending them through then.
Yeah, I think that's Anderson. So Houslip has been doing a lot of work on the front. She's kind of sat back in, but the two Aussies really committed in that second group to pulling back. Anderson looks like she's almost had to take that first lap to recover slightly from the swim. She was sat at the back, but she's now moved away to the front of the pack and really trying to get that pack motivated, get them working together to try and pull in the leaders. But the time gap we need to keep an eye on is that 16 seconds. That's what it was through after lap one, so let's see how that changes.
Gina Michelle Camacho, the Mexican, another one to just keep an eye on, was slightly in no man's land, a little bit caught between the chasing group, and then there's a group of around about 3 athletes or so that has Manson, Alighieri, of course Yulia Ivanova, around about 35 seconds off the leaders. Camacho impressed yesterday on a really good run course in her semi-final, was one of the fastest runners by about 10 seconds in her semi-final in the end, and that'll be something that I guess the semi-finals yesterday just make everybody a little more aware of the talents that each individual athlete possesses when it comes to perhaps the triathlon today, and knowing a little clearer who those excellent runners are in the field, who are those that can make it count on the swim and who are going to push on the bike.
Yeah, you've got that little bit more information coming in. And some of the athletes in the field today will have really had to push themselves to the limit to make this final. They would have had to go all out. Others will have been a bit more comfortable, definitely left a bit of reserve in the tank, because It's unusual. The athletes do race back-to-back days, but normally it's a race and then a relay the next day. But having the two distances are not full sprint distance, but the two races back-to-back, I think especially for some of these younger athletes, that's going to be quite tricky. And the fact that they're racing quite hot conditions, what has that actually taken out of them? So, yeah, it's great to have that information, but you're just never quite sure how an athlete's going to come out on the day.
It's difficult to know how much, maybe if you're one of those athletes that's trying to hold something in reserve for tomorrow's final, how much you can sandbag it slightly and how much you can take off the pace, because suddenly if you find yourself out of those qualifying spots for Sunday's event here in Tiszaujvaros, as we see the second lap on the bike being completed and the front three still have an advantage. It'd just be interesting to see whether it's still that 16 seconds or so. It's down by about 5 seconds as the chasing group have been able to eat into that lead that the front three have cultivated for themselves.
That'll be good for those chasers to hear that they've managed to pull that back in a little bit. Just a few seconds, but if they can keep working at that, keep knocking it down, it means that they might get back to them by the end of the bike. And for these athletes in front, they've got a decision to make, whether they think, oh, if that gap's definitely come down, maybe they should drop back and kind of sit in, maybe save the legs for the run. It's very hard to do that, though, when you're really committed to the bike for 2 laps. They're almost halfway through the bike. You've already committed. It's like, why not just keep going?
Okay, not exactly the fastest of the runners out there in particular. You'd imagine she'd have hoped to have had that lead on the swim and kept it as large as possible, considering she was fairly well down in her semi-final in terms of the run time she had yesterday. As you just see the Australian house slip just sitting on the rear of that chase group that are working hard, led by the Australian right now, Aspen Anderson, who's trying to drive them forward up to the rear wheel of the front three. Great work by the Australian. Anderson clearly has a point to prove that she doesn't want to be left behind too early by these three and wants to be right up there with the leaders coming into transition and going out onto the run.
Yeah, big turn by Anderson there.
Don't want to take it too big. It's quite good they've got the bus lane there just to give them a little bit of extra width on that turn.
Yeah, she's really pulled back there, though. That she's sat on the front, taking a really good, strong pull, and managed to get that group back onto the front of the chasers. Yeah, but this is an athlete in their last year as a junior. She's been racing senior races as well. She raced a Napier World Cup earlier this year, got a top 20 there. So she has that experience. And I think she definitely got a bit battered in the swim today, but she's managed to recover that, which shows a great kind of, I suppose, calm as well under pressure, because she really came under pressure in the swim, would not have wanted to come out that far down, but has recovered. So use that biking ability now to get her way back to the front.
Yeah, she stayed well and truly in the hunt in the semi-final yesterday with the swim, and then it was a superb run, one of the fastest of the day yesterday that, again, everybody up front will be more than aware of, and Anderson now is moving herself right towards the front of this group as the chase group brings in those three, and Aspen and Kropko. Anderson, and Kropko just sat alongside each other. Slip now has gone all the way from the rear of that chase group and will start to lead them through.
Yeah, she's done a lot of work on the bike, actually. For one of the younger athletes in the field, she's a really strong runner.
Bit of confidence coming off that silver at the Euro Junior Cup last month in Halton as well for the Australian. 2 Aussies have made a good showing for themselves. Well, this is how it looked coming out of the water with Kropko and co taking them into transition as a front three, but the lead that they created for themselves just hasn't been able to stick just yet. Fortunately for them, the margin that you see there between the leading three and the chase group has been completely run down by the midpoint on this bike.
And we now have a front group of 12 athletes together, and they have over 30 seconds. I think now it would be coming up probably about 40 seconds to the chase group behind them. So from where they are at this point, it looks like the winners, the leaders, the podium is probably going to come from this 12.
Certainly not a bike being in use today out there on the course by any of the athletes out there, as it's the Australian that brings them through. Anderson and Houslip have taken a commanding position at the front of that group. It's on to lap 4. Now we'll see if anybody looks to maybe push the tempo a little bit more and see if they can stretch this group out, or will they be happy to sit and settle for these 2 short remaining laps out there on the bike. Some strong riders in there, but it's just whether they feel they've got enough time to be able to create a gap.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, actually, because coming through, we've got 11, so I thought it was 12. Looks like we've lost one of the athletes off the back there.
No incidents reported out there on track. If there are any, we will bring you updates as soon as we can. It looks like it's the Lithuanian Tiszaujvaros who was pulled off the rear of that group and is suddenly around about 30 seconds off the leaders right now, but caught again in no man's land slightly between the chasing group that has Regina Camacho and Manson in it.
Yeah, she was yo-yoing off the back of the group slightly every time they came through transition, so that elastic has snapped and she's now on her own, so that's a tough place to be. But at this point, it's worth just keeping on going. She's still got a big gap to the next. It's only, you know, they haven't got much time left on the bike. These races are so short and sharp.
She may just end up falling into the clutches of that group just behind. It's not a lot of urgency from the looks of it in terms of this is the chase group now. It's around about 50 odd seconds plus behind the leaders at this point. Tiszaujvaros there, you see, say, just out there on her own. Chasing group, I would imagine, are probably going to bring her in the next lap or so. The Aussies are really wanting to take those commanding spots out of the front of this lead group at this point, though. Since they've caught up, it's looked like Anderson and Houslip have been more than happy to sit right on the front for a large part of this 4th lap.
The Austrian athlete there just moving up alongside.
Ritter just making a little push of her own.
I think just to get some positioning. I'm not sure if that was going to be to get a break or anything. And at this point, they've got 11 in the group. It's just maintaining a good position. And for the Aussies, they've made that decision to sit on the front, which is a trickier place to be. They're working harder, they're expending more energy, but also they don't know some of the athletes around them. So maybe they're like, right, we're safer at the front. Because in these junior races, you don't know the experience level of some of the athletes. So it's like, we're at the front, this is the safest place to be, regardless of the fact it's costing us a bit more energy. And we saw there Ritter, she just made a push from the back of the group. And it's just sometimes you can get a bit spooked, someone gets a bit twitchy, someone gets close to you, it's like, right, no, I need to be in a better position.
There is just Ritter and the 2 Australians, and the rest are the Hungarians that will all know each other, and imagine, reasonably well to some level or so in that leading group. So maybe it's just better to try and not be enveloped by the Hungarians. That's exactly what's just happened now out at the front as Ritter and Anderson sink into the middle of the group once more. It's a healthy advantage that these leaders have over everybody else right now. It's going to be interesting the next time that this group of 11 come round, just how they've reshuffled and who's trying to position themselves where going into transition. It's also, of course, when you come in a bit of a busy pack, if you're at the front of transition in terms of one of those lower numbers on your arms, it does pay dividends in terms of not being stalled as much when everybody else is in the center of transition and bikes are going left and right, and 2 bikes can take up almost the width of the transition area if you're unlucky.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's not done on their ranking, it's done on the events yesterday, the semi-finals. So if you did push a bit harder in the semi-final yesterday, you've got a better position coming into the final. So definitely more in the senior races later, we'll see some of them would have pushed a bit harder to make sure they had a really good ranking, because as we saw how tricky and congested the swim can be, like, well, I'm going to expend more energy today, so I've got a low number tomorrow, so I can choose one of those outside spots, not get jammed in the middle. So there's so many tactics that come into play when you have the heats one day and the finals the next day. But I love it. It's really interesting to see the different dynamics of the race. And I bet a lot of the senior athletes might have watched that junior swim as well, just to see what happened, and if one position was maybe better. They would have got the experience from yesterday, but it's always worth getting that as much information as possible.
And even if it's not the athletes themselves, it'll be the coaches down there on the side of the course that will certainly be relaying that to the elite athletes for later on in the day, as we also have the junior men coming up just after the end of this race, as the junior women are out there on the final lap, the leaders of the bike. And again, it'll be interesting if it's just going to be stretched out at all by anybody, particularly the Australians, who have tried to be very commanding presence at the front of that group. They've added to their advantage over the chase group, which is well over a minute now, a minute and 11, 12 seconds between 11th and 12th place right now, as Esther Fabok brought the chase group through.
Yeah, a minute 12, that's big, isn't it? It's really gone out that last lap or so.
Particularly on a 3.6 kilometre run, it doesn't leave much time to try and make that gap a little shorter and a little narrower.
Houslip wearing their Queensland Academy colours there. They have the different academies in Australia that they train in. Or it could be schools as well, the great schools competitions in Queensland. And both the Australians have had national titles at running as well. They're fantastic runners.
That won't exactly have gone under the radar when it comes to Houslip and Anderson right now out there at the front. Certainly two of the strongest runners in the field coming into this weekend, and two that are expected, if they can be in contention, at the front of the leading group, to be able to make a really good push out there on two legs on the tarmac across the short run that will be coming up around the park in just a couple of minutes time or so. The end of that fifth and final lap is very much imminent now for the leaders. The chase group just starting to make that right-hand turn back down the side of the park while the leaders are preparing to come into transition. Feet are out of the shoes, preparing to get out of the saddles. It's no real surprise to see Anderson right up at the front of this group, trying to be one of the first in. She will have the nice advantage of wearing the number 1 as well, which should help her through transition. Goes right up there as well. Fourth through along with Ritter.
Ritter's had a good few results already this year as well. Seems to be improving every European Junior Cup she did. She broke the top 10 in her last event. She'd like to continue that run.
Yeah, certainly the last 18 months it's been very consistent, 15s to 20s. It's the Hungarians first out through transition. Not a great transition, you have to say, for Anderson, who looked a little slow. It's Tai who's making her way out and leading the first group through. There's not much time to think about when you want to make your move either on such a short run course, is there?
No, there really isn't. And I think for a lot of the athletes, it's pretty much just go as hard as you can, because it's such a short distance. And if those athletes that are coming towards their last years of juniors, thinking about trying to become a junior world champion, they know that's what they're going to have to do when they hit that junior world championships. It's going to be full on. There's some fantastic runners in that junior category. There's going to be no time to be playing tactics or anything. So I imagine if it's all about that junior world, this might be, well, let's just go out hard and see what happens, because you know that's what they're going to have to do when they get to the World Championships.
This is a group containing Manson, Camacho and others over in there as well. Chase group come in to transition, to be smooth. Expected out of that woman today in terms of potential for being on a podium. Had a couple in her career already, fledgling career really on the World Triathlon stage. The Mexican is going to lead them out, Regina Michel. And the chase is very much on. How much time is left for that chase is slightly different. It's about a minute 34, the gap between the chase group and the leaders out there on course. Looks like the Australian Houslip is the one who is setting the early pace and making the early charge. Sophia Bayer's got a 5-second bike mount penalty. Unfortunately, the Hungarian, who was 8th out of transition, which will be a frustrating blow to her. Houslip has made an early charge, and you said go straight away from the very beginning. It's not much time to do it, and it looks like the Australian's doing exactly that.
I mean, it's incredible running. It's hard to think she's only 15. It's just amazing to see these athletes out there competing in such a professional environment, a professional circuit, and yeah, they look fantastic. But these women, they've got a big gap to make up, over 1:30 behind, so it's going to be a really hard battle for these. They may have that chance to get inside the top 10.
Fairness to Michelle, she looks like she's really looking to try and push that pace early on. Might not be enough to chase down this woman, who is perhaps maybe just leaving something in the back pocket for today in terms of the energy reserves. When it came to her run yesterday, wasn't the greatest in the semi-final. It was more than enough to book her spot, though, into Sunday's action. And Houslip now has perhaps got those little bit of extra energy reserves left in her to really push the pace straight away from lap 1 of 3 out there on this run. She's got a good, healthy advantage over the rest of the field right now. Stobachi coming through with Kropko just behind her. What looks like is the front 3 right now.
We're not sure where Anderson is. She was the athlete, especially with that amazing sort of semi-final yesterday. We expected her to be right up there. We can't really see her in picture, so I hope she's okay.
Drop off in terms of where we thought she'd be and where she's ended up. It was a little slow in transition. She was right up with the leaders as she came out of T2, but she's not exactly in the picture right now. Not many are really in the picture compared to Houslip, who is well in charge out in the field. It does look like a fellow countrywoman has perhaps suffered out there on the first lap of the run in some way, shape or form.
Yeah, I mean, definitely with that semi-final performance yesterday, we would have expected her to be right up there. So maybe she's not well, or something's gone wrong out there for her. She looked in great form to chase down that big gap that she had in the swim. She managed to fight her way back towards the front alongside Houslip.
Well, there's a look back, but I don't think there's going to be too much pondering of where her fellow countrywoman is, as Houslip continues to try and open up the advantage. 13 seconds over the rest of the field that she had coming through.
And she won the Brisbane 10K recently in 35.52, which I think for 15 is a very solid performance. She was hoping to go under 35, but it's quite hilly, but did say her aim is to compete in Brisbane 2032. So getting any racing in Brisbane is to see what the Brisbane crowd can offer. I mean, that's yeah, pretty amazing for such a young athlete, and we're ready to have those goals in place.
Stobachi and then Kropko doing their best to try and stay in contact. Katona as well, another one of the hotly touted Hungarians, in 4th place right now. But this woman is spoiling the Hungarian party. The locals would have certainly hoped that perhaps there would be an opportunity for there to be 3 junior women all on the podium. But the Australian is proving to be an almighty wrecking ball to those hopes and dreams right now for the hosts.
I mean, she looks super smooth and in control. We saw that little look back earlier on, but again, it's there's no one near her at this point. And a part of it, this is it's managing heat. I mean, just it is warm conditions out there. But being based in Queensland, I'm pretty sure she's going to be used to running and racing in hotter conditions.
No word on what has happened to Aspen Anderson, but she's fallen all the way through. She still hasn't gone through the first lap of the run. No official word on her pulling out or anything like that. As soon as we get the information, we will bring it to you. This is the only woman who's in relative contact with the Australian at this point.
And doesn't look like she's giving up either. I mean, it's hard to tell from this point. I mean, but the fact that she has her in sight and she's going to keep working towards her. I mean, the Hauslip did take it out hard, but maybe Sabatchi, if she can come back strong. But it's also that maintaining her position, but she's continuing to look forward, keep pushing, keep that pressure on. You just never know what's going to happen.
She's got a healthy advantage, Sabatchi, ahead of the opposition around her as Marta Kropko just comes round, Jasmine Kropko comes around the corner and just has a look over her shoulder to see where everybody else is. The front three have almost established themselves, although Karina Katona is still trying to stay with Kropko as much as possible, in the same way that Laura Sabatchi is still looking to do that with the leader. It does look like Hauslip's just extending it a little bit more just on the eye view, but we'll get an official time in just a moment as they come through to start the third and final lap here in Tiszaujvaros.
We had about 13 seconds gap last time, so let's see what that is as they come through to start the third lap.
Well, apparently it's down to 7 seconds, which, if that's been halved, Hauslip might have a real issue come the end of this. We've seen dramatic finishes here in Tiszaujvaros before at all levels, but this would be a fantastic performance from Laura Sabatchi if she can reel in the Australian and provide us with a dramatic sprint finish. Kropko's looking to hold on to this third place as she tries to leave Katona just a few extra seconds behind her.
It's tightly packed in there, isn't it, behind Kropko as well for those positions, those 4th, 5th, 6th. They're all lining up, and just one slip up, isn't it? One kind of easing of the pace, half a kilometre where you drop off the pace. That position's gone and someone's waiting to take it from you.
Can't let that tiredness kick in. Is it almost useful that it's a shorter run lap? You can almost see the finish line from half of the run course here in Tiszaujvaros. Does that help at all? Does that give you that little bit of extra motivation to keep the legs going as fast as you can?
I think it depends on how you're feeling. I've been in races where you've kind of done one lap and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe we've got 4 more to do. So I think it really depends on how you're feeling. For Sabatchi, I mean, she's in a great position here. That gap has come down. She's the one charging. She's the one trying to pull back. Just whether she's going to have enough time. It's not a big lap.
It's a much larger distance that Kropko has now over her fellow countrywoman compared to the last time they came round past the water and through the park at this point. But Kropko's still going to make sure that she holds on, and actually there's been a slight change just behind her. Dora Puksai is the one who's now been able to overtake Katona, another one of the Hungarians who was second at the Hungarian National Championships last year. Perhaps she's just making a push now for a podium spot come the end of it. Is there a push from the woman in second place to be able to catch the Australian late on here? Or has that gap just gone out a little bit more as Hauslip found an extra burst, or perhaps the Hungarian behind her has just started to lose a little bit of the energy after exerting herself on that second lap to try and reel her in? She will know that it's only a couple more corners to go.
Yeah, I think she's, maybe that gap's gone out again, or at least it's definitely holding at that time. The Sabatchi hasn't been able to make any more inroads, and I think Hauslip, it was great that she knew that gap had halved. It looked like she's tried to push on a little bit more. When you're in that winning spot, you're not giving it up, are you? She's digging in deep. She's doing everything possible to maintain that position.
Is there a last burst from Laura Sabatchi? Is there a last bit of gas in the tank? Is that last gulp of water going to help her? She's not taking anything from the volunteers along the course. Is she going to take anything from Addison Hauslip, who's made that last turn and is marching down the road to victory? Steady as she goes right now, though.
And just in general, how good is this for the Australian team, knowing that they're hosting the World Championships later this year and that their juniors are out winning European Cups? Because the European Cups generally are a higher standard than all the Oceania ones. There's more athletes there, there's more countries, that standard. I mean, we haven't got the French athletes here today, but in general they're hard. So amazing for the Aussies knowing that they're able to come to European Cups and their athletes are able to win them.
Yeah, coming to the Northern Hemisphere can sometimes be a little intimidating, but there is no intimidation being shown here. Addison Houslip takes the junior women's gold here in Tisza with a sterling performance. She comes home ahead of a train of Hungarians led by Laura Stobacsi, who takes second place to keep Hungarian hopes of podium positions alive and well. And Jasmine Kropko, after such a sensational podium finish at the Aquathlon World Championships this month, is able to come home and take the third spot on the podium. A superb performance from Kropko when some perhaps wondered if her run would be enough to be able to hold on to that podium after excellent work on the swim earlier today. And then Putstai comes through to Pip Katona to fourth place. But it's 4 Hungarians in the top 5 and more to come as well on a fantastic start to the day on home soil for Team Hungary. But it's Addison Houslip that spoils the party straight away with our first race of the day from Tisza, taking victory, the Australian. Petra Ban coming through to grab a top 10 finish for herself. That would have been the expectation and the hopes for a lot of these Hungarian athletes to be inside the top 10 today on home soil. Oh, definitely. And just knowing where you are against your fellow Hungarians as well, it's really important for them. But Petra Ban as well had a great swim. She was up there at the start of the bike, so an all-round solid day for her. Oh, wow, the Mexicans ran through really well. And Regina Michel has done a superb job making her way through the field and really finishes inside the top 10. You know, with over a minute and a half down, she's really motored through that field. Probably one of the fastest runs of the day. I knew that she had it in her. As Rita comes through as well to complete the top 10. So those top 10 positions are bookended by the Australian and the Austrian. Some Hungarians in between them. Tells a fantastic start to the story for Team Hungary today. It's a superb piece of running though from Regina Michel, the Mexican, who impressed yesterday on the run. That'll put her in good sights, of course, for later on in the year and obviously further on in her career as well, if she can perhaps just get that swim and maybe was just unlucky on the swim, and you get those close quarter battles around the boys where you can get caught up here in Tisza. Yeah, the swim's a lot more unpredictable when it's this tight. It's not always the fastest swimmers, it's just the positioning. And I think as we saw in that first buoy, that some of those swimmers were at that first buoy for a good few seconds, unable to move forward, almost just treading water. So if that does happen to you, it's a hard day to recover from. Manson, she's got the opportunity to watch her older sister later on. Yeah, a little bit of R&R needed perhaps for Hannah Manson after a hard-fought battle to finish in the top 20, and a good performance for another young athlete to certainly keep an eye on. Cristian as well, the Romanian, the youngest in the field. I don't want to make anybody feel too old, but born in 2010, the Romanian does certainly make some of us here feel a little bit like we're very much further down the aging process. Superb work for her. Four DNFs or disqualifications in the end today, including Aspen Anderson. Never made it past the second transition, along with Alice Julia Jerry of Hungary. Disqualified for cutting the swim course, it was deemed. We had a couple of those actually out there on course. Let's chat though with the winner.
Addison, congratulations on a fantastic performance today. You look like you really had to dig deep there during the run.
No, yeah, absolutely. I went out hard in the first lap and put my ground on, and then by the end of the second lap, I heard my teammates and people from my federation say she's closed. So that went from 12 to 7 seconds, and I'm like, that's a long way to close in one lap. So I knew on that last lap, if I wanted to keep the win today, I'd have to dig really deep. And I'm going to be so honest, it was so brutal, but I'm really glad that I did it, and I feel really proud to have won it today as the youngest age, one of the youngest athletes on the line today.
And it seemed on the third lap that you really used the downhill section to pick up some speed and try and extend the gap. Was that the tactic there?
So again, people from my federation were like, make sure you get your cadence up going down the hills, and I've really been trying to work on my cadence in this last season, so I definitely knew that's somewhere I could bridge a gap if I executed that right.
And back at the start of the race, you were the first non-Hungarian athlete through T1. What was going through your head when you saw that there was a breakaway up the road and they were really hammering it down?
Yeah, so I had a pretty shocking swim yesterday. So my goal, pretty much my only goal today, was to really execute the swim correctly so I could, rechannel my confidence. I knew prior to the race that the Hungarians were strong swimmers, but I also knew that there would be a big chase group. So I just had to trust the pack dynamics and trust that there'd be no crashes, obviously, and that we'd close that gap down to the 3 in front.
And you're coming off a medal at the Europe Junior Cup in Halton as well. So this has been quite a special summer for you, wouldn't you say?
No, yeah, absolutely. So I've been over here for 5 weeks, and I actually head back to Australia tonight. So a bit of a long haul flight, but this 5 weeks has been, I think, one of the most memorable in my entire life. I've come over here, I've learnt lots, I've adapted, I've met international competitors, which obviously coming from Australia we're a little bit far away. So everything that I wanted this trip to be has been absolutely incredible.
Well, I'm sure there'll be plenty to celebrate when you get home. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Should be a good flight home, that's for sure. You got 24 hours in the air to enjoy whatever the flight has to offer as Addison Hauslip takes gold here for the junior women in Tisza. Onslaught of Hungarians behind her, led of course by second place Laura Stobacci, then Jasmine Kropko making up the podium positions. Further down the order, Mr. Fabok just missing out on a top 10 in the end. Anja Bezlai able to squeeze herself into the top 20, as did Hannah Manson. Youngest athlete, Georgiana Crisan of Romania, just outside the top 20 in the end. We have 4 DNFs, the junior women here in Tisza. That's a great start to the day here this Sunday in Hungary. We have the junior men just on the horizon. The junior women have set the tone, and set the tone well, albeit breaking some Hungarian hearts, with an Australian taking top spot on the podium. This is how it all started, out there on a very busy swim in the water. It was a familiar name leading them through, though, on this swim, Jasmine Kropko. Has been so successful already with her exploits at the Aquathlon World Championships, certainly setting a pace and setting a tone out there in the water. She was followed, though, closely by the likes of Laura Stobacci and her fellow countrywoman. We're all right on her heels. Petra Ban there as well, as there was a distinctive front three going out onto the bike. And those three would try and work hard to pull themselves away from the chasing pack, and they held an advantage just for a couple of laps. Fortunately, though, for this trio, their efforts at the front of the field, not enough to prevent the chasers from being able to reel them back in and get them in their grasp, led by Addison Hauslip and her fellow countrywoman Aspen Anderson out there on the bike. The chasers caught them. Hauslip left everybody behind her straight away on the run, pushing the pace very early indeed on lap 1 of 3 through the park. just able to hold off the late charge coming from this woman, Laura Stabachci, who did her best to try and bring that gap down, getting it from 12 to about 7 seconds over the course of one lap. We did wonder going into lap 3 if the Hungarian in second did have a chance of perhaps just getting onto the heels of Hauslip. It wouldn't be the case though. The Australian maintaining her lead, maintaining her advantage and taking the win. Welcome back to Tiszaujvaros here in Hungary. We are set for the junior men after all the thrills and spills of the junior women just a few moments ago. It's a chance for these young male athletes to get out in the water, onto the bike, and then out onto the run as well on this shorter but devastatingly fast course. Myself, Oliver Wilson, and Helen Jenkins taking you through all of the action, and we've had certainly a good tone being set for action and excitement from those junior women just a few moments ago. The elite men as well, there's plenty of names just to keep an eye on, particularly a couple of athletes from South America that will certainly fancy getting involved in the Tiszaujvaros party. Just give you a sense of the grand scale of the weekend here in Hungary, in Tiszi. Everybody of all ages getting involved in the wealth of activities that take place across this weekend. And we'll probably say it time and time again, Helen, over the next few hours or so, but it really is a great party scene that goes long into the night as well, with the music in the evening and the festival feel.
Oh yeah, one of the favourites of the athletes on the circuit, and maybe not just for the after party, but the fact that there is such a good atmosphere around the whole few days of racing. I mean, even just seeing all those kids going out on the bikes there was one with stabilisers and ribbons on the handlebars. I love it. This weekend is for everyone. Whatever your standard, whatever your age, you can come down and do some sport. So I love that whole vibe of Tiszaujvaros, and I think the athletes kind of pick up on that as well, and that they know that they're really appreciated and that the town are going to come out and watch and enjoy the racing.
It opens up the world of world triathlon once again to this beautiful town. Air temperature's gone up already by a few degrees since the start of the junior women's event. It's now 33-degree air temperature as the heat continues to rise, as I'm sure will the intensity down there on the pontoon and in the water as these men get set to take their positions. And we've seen how congested it can get on this very unique circuit on the World Triathlon stage that the athletes have to contend with. Sebastian Zurob impressed yesterday in his semi-finals, as did his fellow countryman Daniel Ubia. The Chileans are two that could certainly make a real strong push for podium positions today. Jack Woodbury as well, one to keep an eye on further down. Finley Oliver as well on the starting list. Lehel Hobor too, one who had very good early separation on the swim yesterday and will be somebody to keep an eye on. The Hungarian could be as fast as a shark through the waters if they can find the breathing room, the space and the separation. 2 laps making up a 500-metre swim course, then down in the lake, looping round the boys, and then on the second lap out through the trees and into the transition area, taking them out on a very fast and flat bike course. 5 laps making up 12.5 kilometres. The one solo dead turn just at the top of the course before they come back down towards the bottom of the park again. 2 90-degree turns left will take them up to the transition area once again and out on a run course that takes in a fair bit of the bike, but at least has a little bit of shade through the trees, and straight through the park and around the water down to the bottom of the park. A couple of left turns again and straight back up to the blue carpet, the finish line, and perhaps a podium position, and for somebody a gold medal here today. Anybody else particularly catching your eye from the semi-final action yesterday? It was busy with the men, so there were a few surprises.
There was. I mean, with Zalan Trindle-Nagy, he's coming in as the defending champion from last year, so I feel like there's a lot of pressure on him. He's been interviewed by European Triathlon already this weekend, so I think it's interesting, isn't it? It's great to come in as we're having won it before. You've got that confidence, but it also does add a lot of pressure, especially for these young Hungarians competing in front of their home crowd. So maybe it's easier for some of the athletes from the different nations to come in, a bit less pressure, and maybe we'll see someone else up there on the podium, at the top of the podium this year.
Certainly not in the mind of Zalan Trindle-Nagy, that's for sure. He wants to be right back there again. History repeating itself is a very difficult thing to do, though. You can just see the number 1 and the number 3 of the Chileans, Zurob and Ubia, just on this near side of the screen. Andras Medvegi as well, another Hungarian to keep an eye on, wearing the number 11 on the closest left-hand side of your screen. patient wait to get going. Didn't really see a clear line, which was more favourable for the athletes, although I have to say that Kropko for the women was on that left side as we look at the pontoon. It's all about finding some separation as quickly as possible as the junior men are out into the water and they start the first lap of 2 on their 500-metre swim.
And I don't think that that heartbeat music is ever not nerve-wracking. But the fact of that heartbeat music before you're diving into this swim, which is one of the trickiest swims on the circuit, the fact that it's 2 laps of 500 metres, it's such a tight circuit. And we did see in the women so many athletes really getting stuck at that first buoy. I see here, like, the ability to do this, to have this super fast start, be able to get clear water so quickly, just is such an advantage on this kind of swim. We see one of the Israeli athletes there wearing number 6. They both had great swims yesterday as well.
Sebastian Ziegman there, the number 6 athlete. And then, of course, you've got further down, but out in the lead at the moment, Jakub Mittner as well of the Czech Republic, who was the fastest in the swim in the semi-final, the third semi-final for the men yesterday. No surprise to see him then just carving out an early lead at the top. He was about 9 seconds ahead of everybody else out there on the swim. Very impressive, and looking to repeat the feat once again here in today's final. It's a little bit of ease perhaps in the water with the fact that Jan Peterko didn't make it through DNF yesterday in his semi-final. Semi-final won the Junior Aquathlon World Champion of this year. Unfortunately, ended up not finishing. Tobias Lehrer as well was disqualified wearing the number 10 in the first semi-final yesterday. Hotly touted Raul Petra as well of Romania was disqualified for cutting the course on the final lap of the run yesterday in semi-final 2. There are a couple of the names that perhaps would have been expected to be up towards the front of this field at some point today that didn't make the cut in the end, and as we've touched on already, it can be the danger of the format here in Tiszaujvaros that you need to make sure you get the job done in your semi-final to give yourself a chance of being in this final, but it's how much you exert yourself, and some may have over-exerted themselves yesterday to ensure that they're involved in the action today.
I know, it's so tricky when they're racing back-to-back, how much energy to put in. You want to make the final, but you also want to make it with a good position so that you can choose your start spot, so you have more choice at that start position. But it's also aware of the fact that you're racing the next day. It's really hot, it's over 30 degrees at the moment, so they've had to do their best to recover from day to day. And the athletes do race back to back, but it's usually maybe a sprint distance with the relay the next day. So this maybe it's not kind of an in-between distance here today, but some of the athletes are going to cope with it really well. And again, it depends how much they had to put into that final yesterday.
Mittner bringing them through then around the bottom of the swim course and back out towards the top to start the second lap here. And it's maybe not going to be a 9-second lead that he has, although certainly starting to give himself a little bit of separation. He's just got Roy Margaloith of Israel, who was first out of the swim in the first semi-final yesterday. Wasn't able to make it count, however, on the bike and out on the run. But again, it's no real surprise to see 2 of the best swimmers from the semi-finals yesterday doing it again here on Sunday. And
we're really strung out already. Look at that distance from the front to the back, and it's kind of gone to at least 2 abreast out. I mean, at that first buoy, I did see one of the athletes at the back actually stop and adjust his goggles. It must have already just been knocked off full of water and had to actually take the time to get the water out of them.
If you want to have the time to adjust your goggles, probably taking the inside line around one of those buoys will allow you to stop for a second.
Well, yeah, I mean, he was stopped anyway. There was too many athletes in front of him, so you may as well adjust them. I mean, you're not going to do it at this point here when you're leading.
Certainly there's no rest for the wicked up at the front as Mittner leads them around the turn at the top of the swim course. Strung out only really 2 abreast, which means that there is a chance now for some of these athletes to really get into their flow and into a bit of the pace and really stretch this out. There's already maybe 2, and then there's another 3 and a smaller gap again before it gets a little busier behind them.
And this is the opportunity here. So say you had a bad swim to that first buoy, you got really stuck. At this point now, it's a bit more strung out. If you're a good swimmer, a strong swimmer, you might be able to claw back a few paces here just going around the outside of someone, cutting up the inside, doing everything possible to gain those few extra spots. And I think sometimes when you're stuck in a position and you're looking up down the line, it's like, oh, is it worth it? But it so is if you have that ability to close down a couple of gaps, because we've seen gaps on the bike go with a second. It can be a second or two, and the gap is going to go. If you're a good runner, you can rely on that transition. You can rely on pulling back a few seconds, although it's not a massive run from coming out the swim to the bike. If you're a strong runner, you can always pull back a few seconds at that point. So some will rely on that to get themselves up.
Others will be hoping that the gap that they create now on the swim will give them a chance of being involved at the front on the bike. That's certainly what Mittner and others will be fancying at this point. Where they can hold on to the advantage, though, through the bike and the run is a far bigger question. It's a strung out field, but it's not exactly so strung out that you would say that they're not got the chance to potentially be all reasonably close together once they get out through that first lap on the bike. There's no big three breakaway like we saw yesterday, earlier this morning in the elite women as well, but there is 5 athletes at the front. Just got a little bit of breathing room over the rest. There's a 3 and a 2 now just starting to appear at the front of the field as they get set to come out of the water, clamber up the slope out of the water and make their way down towards transition. It's Mittner who's going to bring them through. Hobor as well, the Hungarian's been able to get in second place. There's a slip there by Kenda Kuchnop, which is just going to hold him back slightly, and it's another thing to keep an eye on. You've got to keep your wits about you, just going up that sodden carpet that's only going to get wetter as more athletes go through.
It is. We can see some of them really struggling. Just their number 1 coming out. Do you see that? Zurab, so he was quite a long way down.
Zurab back in 18th, 22 seconds off the leaders. Won his semi-final yesterday by about 7 seconds. Really good work on the bike, though, and he will know that he can make up time out there on the bike, the Chilean. As the leaders come down, it's just a trail into transition. Mittner. Looks like he's going to be first out. Very smooth through T1. It has to be said by the man leading them through, Hobor as well.
And it's not a nice position to be in as you're running up with your cap and goggles, seeing athletes jumping on their bikes, like they're already mounted and riding down the road. And it's at that point you have to remain really calm. Start panicking, you're going to mess up your transition. It's executing everything as well as you can normally do without letting that pressure get to you. And once you're on the bike, that's when just go for it. Let it all out, try and pull those back in. But especially for transition, we have to stop, slow down, get that helmet on. It's not a hard thing to do, but when you're under pressure, you're coming out the swim, your heart rate is sky high, to settle down, do it properly. Again.
Especially for young athletes too, on this sort of stage and this sort of occasion, when you want to put your best in on a big event like this one here in Tiszaujvaros. And you just saw just a second ago there, Dominik Ivancic, the Slovakian, just having his hands shaking slightly as he was trying to clip his helmet in.
Yeah, and these athletes at the front here, they've got a good gap already. There's athletes, it's going to be all strung out. When they get down to this dead turn, they're going to see the athletes all down the road, know that they're chasing them. So it's trying to keep that momentum. They can get this little group working together. It's quite early for that to happen. So at this point, it's just athletes going to the front. Literally throw yourself at the front, go as hard as you can for a couple of minutes. Then the next one, then the next one. It's hard to get a rhythm in these early stages. And the more they try to talk to each other and get that rhythm going, it might actually slow them down. At this point, it's just go hard. Once it all settles down, that's when they can start working together.
It's a big group out of the front, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's only a field of 30, and it looks like we've got around about 20 or so of them who are almost completely well connected together. Beer, you just see there on the back, the Chilean pair of he and Zurbov, so they're right up still in the mix of this strung out field as the chase group come round the turn. It's not much of a chase group of 5 athletes, and if they work hard, there might be a chance to settle right back on the rear of the front 17 or so.
Yeah, I mean, they've always got a chance, especially when that front group is so big, because, like we said, there's not going to be much organisation. So at one point, some people are doing turns and they might start looking around at each other, and that's when that chase group can take that opportunity. They're working hard in a small group.
Did see almost an authoritarian approach from the Australians in the end in the junior women earlier today, and Aspen Anderson and Addison Houslip out there on the bike. You just wonder if there's going to be that noted by anybody, and if there's maybe 4 or 5 athletes that just need to take charge and say, forget what the rest are doing, we're going to run this bike, because it is so fast, it can be so aggressive, and if you're confident on the bike, you can start to push the tempo early on.
Yeah, definitely. I think with some of the the stronger athletes, the more experienced athletes as well, they're going to be maybe just take charge, go to the front. They might have that confidence as well to get the others moving. I mean, we've got some really young junior athletes in this race, and they haven't had that massive exposure to this level of racing. They'll literally be doing everything possible to hang on and stay in the group. So the levels of experience that they could have in those sort of 3-year age gap is absolutely massive. So those ones that are in last year junior, they've got their sights set on World Championships at the end of the year. They have a completely different mindset coming into some of these younger athletes, like, I'm just so happy to be here and be in this front group.
That's why perhaps you see Ceremonies there right up towards the front of the field at this point.
Yeah, I mean, and he got 11th at World Juniors last year. This is his last year as a junior. You think with that 11th place, he's got that experience at World Juniors. He's going to be like, right, this is my year. This is the year I want to win the World Championships. So again, having that win last year in Tiszaujvaros, he's going to be looking to do that again. And I believe this is selection for the Hungarian team. If they do well here today, they'll earn that selection to the World Junior Championships.
How about Calderon as well, second in the World Junior Aquathlon Championships up there towards the front too. Another one of the Mexicans this weekend to certainly watch out for, particularly in this junior men's race. Ceremonies, the one who's spearheading the attack though at the front of this leading group, a leading group that dribbles all the way down to around about 17th place in the end. Is Finley Oliver just on the rear guard before Barnabas Gaspar, the Hungarians, 19 seconds further down the road in a group with Jack Woodbury, Dominik Ivanchik, Michael Stiebel and Andras Medvegi of Hungary. Then you have another group that's about 25 seconds further down the road as well, and that is basically the group that makes up the top 28 in total, with a couple of athletes, Vera Tenisakau and Sabo as well, Levantis Sabo, about 40 seconds further down the road, the Hungarian to the rear of the field. Let's talk about the experience as well, the variation between these athletes. Alan Ceremonies, 27 starts in his career so far. You compare that to a young man who's 2 years younger than him, Sebastian Zeigman, only 3 starts.
Yeah.
It's stark contrast, but there's not much separating those two right now at the front, which will certainly please the Luxembourg athlete.
And it's always interesting to look at the starts, because that's just World Triathlon starts, so that's how many maybe junior European Cups they've. So they will have been doing other racing as well, like junior series, so that's it, maybe like within your own country. So there's always lots of other racing going on, but yeah, it is always interesting to see how some of the juniors have so many starts. They've been racing lots of junior European Cups for the last sort of 3 or 4 years, so yeah, they have more than some of the senior athletes. It'd be good to watch what that gap does back to the second group. It was at 19 seconds, so we'll see whether that is going to stay the same, go out, because those athletes in the second group are obviously working really hard to try and get themselves to the front. And they are all sort of sharing the lead, working together. Well, some of them at the front here.
Finley Oliver taking his turn up at the front now of the lead group, the athlete from New Zealand. And
he ran well yesterday. He didn't do it. Not sure if there was an incident on the bike. He did seem to lose a bit of time on the bike yesterday, but did a good run to get himself qualified for the final. Maybe he had to run a little bit harder than he would have liked to have done.
Certainly impressed in the Southern Hemisphere events, that's for sure, Finley Oliver. Bronze at the Oceania Junior Championships this year already.
And it's a great experience for these athletes to come over. They quite often, the Aussies, the Kiwis, they'll come over for sort of a 6-week block, kind of do a few junior European Cups, get that experience, and then they'll be taking it home ready to prepare for the World Championships at the end of this year in Wollongong, which is obviously not a long journey for them, but a lot easier than being in Spain last year.
And it is important to test themselves against perhaps the slightly stronger fields that you get in Europe, because Australia and New Zealand, and then there's a little bit of interest elsewhere around the kind of Oceania region, but it's really when they go off to maybe Asia and then come across to Europe as well that the extra test and the added value to those trips can really be seen further down the road.
Yeah, well, you think last year's both World Junior champions were French, and they were really fast runners, and those athletes have been racing probably in that French Grand Prix circuit for the last year or so. So the standard is very high. And coming over to Europe, they get exposed to that. So I think it's knowing what to expect as well when you go to race then at World Championships. If you've not gone and experienced it, it's really tricky to know, isn't it? Just to be in these bike packs, get used to it, especially for these younger athletes.
Just see their comrade Sekeli just having a word, it looked like, actually, with Finley Oliver up at the front. And the New Zealander just saying, well, what do you want me to do? I'm the one leading us through as well,
Yeah,
right up
yeah.
alongside you. Some of the others. And I actually think I saw the Hungarian put his hand out and say, I'm getting frustrated at everybody. It seemed to be the body language rather than you as an individual. Oliver's
Yeah.
certainly taken it to heart, though, as he continues to push and give himself a little bit of a cushion just before the rest of the group are behind him, only a second or so, but it's still just a sign from the New Zealander that he maybe wants to push on a bit more.
And that gap's still 19 seconds, interesting. It stayed the same. When we saw that second pack come through, there was definitely look that they were looking at each other, they'd spread across the road. So they've done well to hold that at 19. This is a great section for that chase group because they can see the pack in front of them. They'll be very motivated, especially around the dead turn. On the way back, they'll see that distance is relatively similar. We can see an Australian coach back up there on the corner, so he'll be giving Jack Woodbury splits.
Has been noted that Mihaly Szabo and Barnabas Gaspar, along with Iran Peltzman, have all been given swim conduct penalties after that swim. They'll have to serve at some point.
That's quite a few penalties, isn't it?
It's been watched quite a lot here in Tizzy this weekend. I've seen a number of them handed out across all of the races yesterday in the semi-finals. It's always going to happen, though, isn't it? When you've got so many athletes vying for position out there in a small body of water, it's hard almost not to have.
It is really hard not to have contact, and I think it's really being mindful of what you do. I mean, when your hand lands on somebody else's shoulder, you can either push them back, which is advantageous to you because it propels you forward, or you can let your hand slide over their shoulder. When your arm is hitting someone, you can do it with an open hand or you can do it with a fist. So I think most people are trying their best to get out of a situation, but there's certain decision making that you do not want to pull another athlete back. And even in the heat of the moment, that's a horrible thing to do. I mean, I've had it happen to me, and it really disrupts your rhythm. You kind of get that big adrenaline dump then, because you might be going to take a breath, and then suddenly you're underwater. So it's a really horrible thing and I know so many athletes who have had incidents happen to them. So the fact that they do monitor swim behaviour and give penalties is a really positive thing. But it's very hard in such a tight course. And some of those penalties, some of them have not been intentional. They've just maybe they've been caught at a time and maybe they've panicked and something's happened. But I think it's good with monitoring swim behaviour. And it's something that, athletes should be really mindful of when they're in the water, of not doing anything to upset another athlete.
It's a fine balance between having that respect for the athletes around you, but maintaining those competitive edges that will give you the advantage in the heat of the moment, and almost make it sound, Helen, like the triathletes' equivalent of road rage almost down there.
Yeah,
we all have that.
And I don't think anyone's going in, right, come on, I'm going to pull someone back, I'm going to punch someone. But it's when you're massively under pressure, and you're under pressure when you're cramped at a buoy, you can't breathe, somebody's just hit you round the head by accident. So that's when you become under pressure and you might make a slightly wrong decision. And I must say, I'm not saying that any of these did it intentionally. It's just when you're in that movement, you just grabbing out and trying to pull something, and that might have been an athlete. As I say, it's not an easy thing to do, but the fact they're giving penalties is making sure that people aren't going in and doing it intentionally.
The gap is staying the same right now as the chase pack from 18th, Jakub Marek, and further back are still only about 17 seconds off the leaders. Just
2 seconds, so it's been 19, 19, 17. So just a couple of seconds, that might give that chase group a little bit of motivation. You imagine there's coaches screaming at that front group, do not relax, keep pushing, because they are coming in only a couple of seconds.
It's interesting as well that Sebastian Zurob, the Chilean athlete, has just started to position himself out at the front. He was very good on the bike yesterday. Very fast indeed, very powerful on two wheels, and there you see him at the front of this group now is having to sit back just for the first couple of laps and sit in the middle of things and actually at the rear as well on a few occasions. But
he didn't have a great swim, so he would have had to go really hard on those first lap or two to get into this front group. So I think the fact that he's maybe just chased hard and then sat in to recover a little bit. He's now recovered and he's moving to the front of the group. But also it looks like this chase group are almost there.
I was going to say, it's always a little bit of an optical illusion at the dead turns when a big group condenses and then gets stretched out again, and then you have the same with the chase group. But that chase group, it does look like have worked hard at the start of this fourth lap of 5 to really bring that gap down once again. You can see there visually it looks a lot shorter than it was. Maybe it might be inside 10 seconds almost at this point, as the lead group is very much strung out down these fast straights, as some of those up at the front are really starting to just add a little bit of extra oomph to the legs.
And you said the Chilean was riding strong, but that's what he's done. He's really strung it out down that, probably motivated by the fact he heard that chase group was catching a little bit. He's trying to get the group working together here.
You can see that arm just saying somebody else needs to come to the front now. I'm trying to push as much as I can. Let's get moving. As you say, Helen, it's so difficult to organise a big group like that. There'll always be maybe 4 or 5 at the front that are looking to push, but if not everybody else is going with, suddenly it's kind of stuck on the group that we are at this point. Just mean that chase group has a chance to bring it all together in this final lap of the bike as they make the last couple of 90-degree turns down at the bottom of the course and set to make their way across to start the final lap on the bike course. That will make it a very busy transition area indeed. It will not be what some of the athletes would have really wanted to see. Play into the hands of others, though, who perhaps have been able to sit in the middle of these bike packs and let others do some of the hard craft. Finley Oliver just going on a little jaunt of his own out of the front. You can see there as well Jack Woodbury's looking to do the same in the chase group.
He's been out the saddle. He was out the saddle for a good amount of time there. Head down. That's a really big push. Like he's just about to make contact with that first pack.
That's the encouragement that the chase group have needed as well behind him, because others are following in suit.
Yeah.
There's a couple that have just been dropped off, only just crossing the blue carpet and the start of lap 5 now.
That's an amazing fourth lap, wasn't it, from the chasers? And Woodbury there with a huge push to close down that gap. And Woodbury's a strong runner as well, so he's expended a lot of energy, but he's got himself into the position he needed to be in. He wanted to hit T2 in the front group.
Veggie, the one who was just being dropped off the back of that group, but it's around about 27, 28 athletes, although this man is looking to maybe go out on his own a little bit more, Finley Oliver. Enough waiting around for everybody else, and he is just starting to open up an advantage on one of the longest straights on the course before that dead turn. He'll have a bit more room as well around that dead turn. Is, has the New Zealander done too much too early for very little reward in the end? Oliver getting set to make the turn now, nice and tight on the apex and wide, and get the power out straight away. Zurob is right behind him though, the Chilean wearing the number 1 that always would have fancied himself being at the front of this bike group. They are all together, all congested before they get strung out again. So they make their way down to what was probably the fastest part of the course when they make this right-hand turn. And it's a long straight all the way down the side of the park before the last 2 90-degree turns.
I was just thinking, from that dead turn, you want to be in a position near to the front, because now they're hitting that fast section. It's really tricky to make your way from the back to the front when they're travelling at those super fast speeds. So I think we'll see a lot of the top contenders will have already positioned themselves, definitely in the front third of that group.
Certainly that man, Zurob, out in front, wants to be doing that. Woodbury's got himself all the way to the very front as well, alongside the Chilean, just in third there.
It's a good position to be in, because they've positioned themselves here. Look, say Woodbury just taking on a last-minute drink. Means that as they hit those kind of last corners before transition, it's, they're the ones that have just got to hold their space at this point, whereas the athletes at the back, they're trying to figure out the way to get through to the front.
Or maybe doing what almost unintentionally some of these might be doing, which is sitting a little further off the back and finding a bit of space that way if they think that they can close in on the run.
And I think for some of those unexperienced athletes, I mean, they maybe don't have the confidence to get stuck in there in the middle of that group. I mean, we've got athletes here which are, you know, really young, still 15, and they might not have been in these kind of larger packs before. So they're like, right, I'm just going to sit at the back for this one and take my time through it, because they might not be aiming for a podium today. They just get out there getting the experience.
It's but very much the whoa, no, thank you. I'll let you guys tussle it out.
And I think it depends on the athlete, but the athletes here going for the win today, they have no choice. They need to be at the front of this group now, because with such a short run, every second is going to count. I saw a picture of Woodbury and he had blood on him when he finished yesterday, so I'm not sure. He's got a little cut on the face and on the shoulder. I'm not sure what happened to him in the semis, but he did. He was out there with a bit of a scar today.
Talking about positioning yourself, by the way, and look at the quick burst from the Hungarians, just looking to be as Alan Trungelnagi's the one that is going to lead them through into transition. Nihil Hobor and Siletsky as well, the three Hungarians that take the bike group into T2. Going to be as fast as possible. It's the reigning champion that takes them out. It's been slow there for the Chilean Sebastian Zurab, not the transition that he would have wanted. And unfortunately for a lot of these athletes, there is a train of Hungarian tri-suits sat out at the front right now. Oliver's done the hard graft at the front for a lot of that on the bike, but he's a lot further back than he would have hoped to be, as is Jack Woodbury, who was stuck behind the first, 6-7 triathletes from Hungary. Woodbury coming out in fifth in the end.
Praise for the Hungarian Triathlon Federation. I mean, the high pressure race, this is your home race. All of them absolutely nailed that transition. That was absolutely incredible. We see the other athletes running through now, but yeah, those Hungarians did brilliantly there.
Even if it's just to have the honour of leading them through and out onto the run. Woodbury trying to get right up alongside Trungelnagi, as is the Chilean Sebastian Zurab. Woodbury is looking like he's taking inspiration from his fellow countrywoman from earlier and taking the house slip approach of looking to push the tempo nice and early. Although try getting rid of the busy bees that are right on his shoulder. Daniel Ubia right up alongside the Australian.
Woodbury went to World Championships last year. He got a top 20, but he was the youngest athlete in the field, so he's got plenty more years left at juniors. So it just shows like how talented he is, but to come away with a top 20 at that age was really impressive.
He was the fastest runner in his semi-final by about 6 seconds yesterday, Woodbury.
And then you've got Ubia, who won the Americas Championships recently. So both very talented juniors at the front of their field.
Second in the South American Tri-Champs as well back in April, which I'm sure for him feels like a long time ago, but it's been a very good 2025 so far for Daniel Ubia.
And then you got
so dominant, Ubia as well in his semi-final yesterday. He had about a 12-second lead by the end of it.
And I was just thinking Trungelnagi as well, he knows how to win this race. And I'm wondering if that's going to come into it as well, having that knowledge of the course. Maybe he knows, maybe he's already got a plan of knowing when he's going to push on, what he's going to do.
Best laid plans of mice and men, though.
Yeah, I know, that's it, isn't it? There's so many plans until until you're actually really under pressure on the first lap. I don't think Woodbury wants to lead all of this. There's a slight swerve there, he's looking around. He doesn't want to be the athlete on the front here for the whole of the run.
He's also been just trying to get his bits of his attire just out of the way. Every so often that hand just leaning over, and you don't want to say it's a distraction and therefore he's not focused, but if he is continually doing that, it just maybe takes him out of his stride a little bit. You can see that bit of lace from the tri-suit hanging over his left shoulder. He's been trying to get rid of it for this first lap. It's got to be an annoyance as it flicks into his face a couple of times, and he checks over his right shoulder once again. But what he's seeing is he's seeing a lot of athletes that are in very close proximity. Almost a leading 10 or so coming through here. The end of lap one, although it just looks like Zurab is slightly struggling. The Chilean wearing the number 1. It's
Yeah, 4 seconds separating that top 9.
Zsombor Holber taking them through then the time split to be able to say that he led lap 1 after Woodbury did all the hard work. Trungellnagi right up there still alongside him. Ubia looks really strong, the Chilean as well in there. They've got about 2 seconds separating the top 8 at this point, with Zorob just slightly behind them with a couple of seconds off the leading pack. Did look like he was struggling a touch more, and then after Zorob, well, you've got the likes of Andras Suks, who's about 10 seconds behind, Jakub Marek as well of the Czech Republic, also in that second group, 10 seconds off the leader. And he's currently on the Australian, who's just about to lose it, the Trungellnagi.
Just using this slight downhill there, isn't he? Just letting the legs go, picking up that cadence and just moving his way into first position.
Just got to manage then the little uphill afterwards as well, but the Hungarian, I'm sure, will know this park like the back of his hand.
And Trungellnagi doesn't look like he's pushing that hard. It's very under control, just by the face. I mean, you can still have a good game face though, can't you? It's a good skill to have.
Zorob's been caught by that chasing group. Brought into their clutches, Suks leading them through. Holber and Trungellnagi, Woodbury, those three just continuing to exchange the lead every so often. The Hungarian now has the Australian sat on his shoulder. Ubia still there as well and has certainly got a run in him. Credit as well to man from the Czech Republic, Jakub Mittner, who's led them through the swim and is still staying right in this group of 7 or 8 at the front of the field, and perhaps just waiting for his chance to make a move, or if he's going to let these Titans up at the front battle it out and hope that they can drain their own resources. And
you can see Nagi's really pushed on here. He's really taken the front. That group has definitely split. A few have gone off the back. It's the first test, it's that first pressure that's been applied, and he's just seeing who can come with him.
Pablo Calderon just falling a little bit off the rear of that leading group, unfortunately. It doesn't look like the Mexican athlete is sticking with the pace right now. There's a bit of a gap between he and Mittner as Trungellnagi, Woodbury take them through the aid station. Ubia as well has been sticking to the Australian like glue throughout this run so far. Holbert's still staying with them also.
Well, this lap from Trungellnagi's definitely got rid of a few more athletes. That's 6 or 7 there now in the front.
Yeah, I think it's, you call it a 6, but it's just whether Siegmann as well from Luxembourg is able to stick with them. He's wearing that darker tri-suit just at the rear of the leading 4 or 5 or so. The athlete from Luxembourg does well at the sprint distance to Siegmann. May have bitten off more than he can chew right at the very front though with these leading athletes right now. There you see the New Zealander Finlay Oliver, who's fighting his own battle now to stay in the top 10, with Sebastian Zorob be around that top 10. Trungellnagi relinquishing the lead at the start of the final lap of this run. Woodbury allowed to bring them through, it seems. Holber's staying with them. Ubia as well, right up with them. Nemeth, Mittner making the leading 6. You would say now it is a leading 6. There's just a 3-second gap between the front 6 and Siegmann of Luxembourg just behind them, but it's unfortunately Siegmann and Calderon that just can't stay with them. It's a good run coming through as well, just in the rear guard from Andras Suks there, who's just trying to remove himself from the chase group and maybe have a chance to get on the heels of some of these right out at the front. Woodbury's just upping the tempo, it seems, as they come through the shaded area of the park on this final lap.
It's going to be an exciting last lap, and it's going to be who wants to leave this to a sprint and who's going to push it on at this point. And it looks like Woodbury's decided to go. It's a big push from him.
They're all trying to come with, though.
Yeah, everyone's strung out, but they're doing everything possible to stay with him.
Ubia looks like he's really pushing himself to just stay in contact. Woodbury.
Oh, yeah, you can see him almost gritting the teeth there, can't you? Just do everything possible to stay in contact.
Mittner staying on the back of this group, but he's starting to fall behind as again another push from Woodbury is maybe just separated the haves and the have-nots. Sabia looks like he's grinding so hard just to try and stay in a podium contention, maybe just caught up slightly as the course gets a little tighter. Daniel Nemeth maybe perhaps in his way a little bit. There's not much room for passing, and if somebody starts to slow in that section, you can really get stuck behind them. There's nobody to get stuck behind, though, with Jack Woodbury. He's out in front, but he's got to be aware of what's right behind him in Zalan Trungelnagi and Zomba Holba.
Yeah, we've got 3 that have moved away now. It's going to come down to these 3. Woodbury's still pushing. You can see him digging in. He's really gone from a long way out.
I would not want to look behind me and see just what is a very composed and confident-looking stride and face of the Hungarian right on his right shoulder, but Woodman just can't take his eyes off him right now. Keeps on checking, keeps on looking, and keeps on wondering if the Hungarian is going to make his move or when he's going to make his move. Can Woodbury hold on and hold off Holger and Trungelnagi? He's even sticking right to the centre of the road as well, just to limit the passing opportunities, Woodbury. Smart positioning from the Australian.
He's had a lot of gears on this last lap. He's pushed on, he's kept going, but he still hasn't been able to get rid of the 2 Hungarians.
It's the Southern Hemisphere gonna conquer and once again break the home hearts here in Tiszaujvaros. Woodbury is looking to make the charge. It's still a long way to go. Trungelnagi and he are leaving Holber behind them. Is it going to be the reigning champion or the Australian? It's going to be a sprint finish to the line, and they are going all guts, all for the glory right now. Woodbury or Trungelnagi, the Australians starting to stretch it out. The Hungarians losing hope in the final few metres. It's going to be Jack Woodbury barring a minor miracle. He's got the tongue out, a wry smile on the face, the blue carpet under his feet, and it's another gold for Australia here in Hungary. A sterling finish once again as Jack Woodbury holds off the challenge of Zalan Trungelnagi and Zomba Holba, and it's an Australian leading 2 Hungarians home for the second time of asking today here in Tiszaujvaros.
Wow, that was an exciting last lap.
And
that was brilliant.
Much like I'm sure Jack Woodbury and Trungelnagi and Holber need to breathe. Everybody can take a sigh of relief. Superb work from Jakob Mittner as well, sticking himself inside the top 5. He's led pretty much from the word go here. The South American contingent finishing in 6th and just outside the top 10 in the end for Abia and Zurab. Didn't really happen for them in the end. Now they're on the run. Daniel Nemes up in 4th, Andras Schuks in 7th for Hungary. Another impressive performance. Pablo Calderon able to hold on to his top 10 finish just behind Sebastian Ziekman, who is able to finish 8th. The man from Luxembourg, Jakob Marek, finishing out the top 10 in the end. Finlay Oliver of New Zealand, who worked so hard on the bike, has to settle for a 13th place position.
I mean, just to go back to Jack Woodbury's run, I mean, he just seemed to just have gear after gear, didn't he? And Trungelnagi did everything possible to get past him at the last bit. But, yeah, it was so impressive from the young Australian, just a really well-measured run.
Always worried a little with the looks over the shoulder, just that he perhaps wasn't sure if he had enough to be able to hold off the 2 Hungarians that were basically breathing right on the back of his neck for the last half of that final lap. But as you say, Helen, there was just an extra step just in those moments when he needed it. It was just before, actually, the steps that are going over the track that you can see there for the spectators, that he had another little kick that gave him enough, and just it seemed to sink the legs of Trungelnagi right at the end.
Yeah. Trungelnagi maybe will be kicking himself. He went a little bit too early. He did go from quite a long way out, but it's so hard to tell, isn't it? You don't know what the athlete, and they're in the mix. They can hear each other breathing. You can sense that athlete, how the athlete feels next to you, and he really went for it. But yeah, Jack Woodbury just had another level today on that run. And well, considering as well, like, he didn't have the best swim, and he really had to ride hard today. He's done it the hard way by having not the best swim. So really impressive ride and run today.
I'm not going to say it was the most important part of it, but even that push right before the start of the 5th lap on the bike, when you saw him just taking the effort on himself to get away from the chase pack, ensure that he at least was right on with the leaders for the final lap and then settled into his stride for the last lap of the bike. It just showed that he came here with an aim at least and had that determination to make those extra efforts when it was required.
Yeah, I mean, it does. And as I didn't do it the easy way with that swim today, but again, just really showing the strength. And then that, we talked about it earlier when you were under pressure, and he was under pressure coming out that swim, but really did everything with the commitment.
Jack, you hit them once, you hit them twice, you hit them 3 times, then 4. Talk us through that insane final lap.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. I can't even believe what just happened. I had no real expectations coming into this weekend. Had a really hard weekend. I went down yesterday on the bike, and to come back today and win that means a lot.
I mean, you just mentioned you had a crash yesterday. Can you talk through how you had to bounce back from that and recover?
Yeah, it was really honestly a mental challenge. Like, I crashed on the first coming out of transition in the roundabout, and then got straight back on and rode my way back to the front, and then finished 3rd to qualify for the final. Yeah, last night was really tough, imagining how today would go, but yeah, stoked, really happy.
And then today you found yourself in the chase pack and you spent a lot of time at the front of the bike. Did that sap your legs in any meaningful way before the run?
It certainly did sap my legs. I was a bit concerned there that I wouldn't have the run legs, but you've got to believe in yourself, and yeah, came through.
And then going into the final lap, there were 6 of you there. You went on the downhill section, it seemed like Addison did in the women's race. Were you getting a bit of input from the coaches on the side to do that?
Definitely, there was the Aussie staff, motivate me to do well, and I was really motivated to go on that last lap, and made it happen.
And then obviously Addison won in the junior women's race. How much of an inspiration was that for you going into this?
Definitely an inspiration. 2 Aussies winning on a world stage for juniors is truly amazing. So really happy.
And then what's next for you coming up in this season?
Definitely, so hoping to get selected for Junior Worlds this year, which we'll find out hopefully soon, and massive build towards then, and
Congratulations on a huge win.
Thank you very much, thank you.
I think it's safe to say he's probably got a good chance after that performance.
I would think so. He's definitely shown what he can do today.
2 seconds separating the top 3 in the end. Jack Woodbury's, Alan Chungunagi and Zomba Holba making up the podium spots. Jakob Mittner, an honourable mention, of course, as we said, after leading the swim and staying with the top of the field out there on the bike and in the run. Finley Oliver making his push so often on the bike. Nobody else really coming with him. 50 seconds off the winner in the end for him. Leo Holbort coming in 17th for Hungary, somebody who was certainly expected to keep an eye on throughout this morning's event. Tiszaujvaros finishing about 3 minutes back in the end. He had a bit of trouble with some gear, led to believe in the transition area. There were a few penalties and blemishes on a few athletes' records in the end from these junior men. Another sensational finish. Tizzy always seems to provide a couple of these grandstand finishes every couple of years or so.
Oh yeah, and even back when it was, going back 20 years as well, where the finish used to be kind of up a slight ramp as well. It was absolutely brilliant. Like we've always had good sprint finishes in Tizzy. It seems like the course seems to lend itself to it. But a great start to the day. Still got the elite women and the elite men to come.
Well, this is how it went for the junior men this morning here in Hungary. A feisty swim, shall we say. The few battles being had out there in the water, mentally and physically as well. It's one man that was bringing them out and leading the charge. Jakob Mittner taking the leaders out of the water and into transition 1 before everybody went out onto the bikes. It was a rather large group, though, that were hot on the heels of the man from the Czech Republic. It was an even larger contingent that would finish all together out there on the bike course. Nobody really making the initiative and the effort at the front of the pack to try and lead a charge away from everybody else, with a fair few just sitting in. There were some moves made. Finley Oliver was asking some questions of others at the front of the field and wondering who might be willing to come with him on a push every so often. He tried it late on as well. Sebastian Zurob too, driving force out at the front. You can see the dejected look slightly there from the Chilean, that nobody else in that moment was really coming with him. A chorus of over 20 that came in to T2 in the end all together. It was all going to be decided out there on the run. Home favourite perhaps, Alan Chungunagi would battle it out with the Australian who tried to lead the charge straight away. Jack Woodbury, Trungell-Nagy, Holber all happy to rotate around at the front of the pack, but it was always one of those three that was leading out there on the run course. And those three would eventually become two. As Woodbury made his kick on the final lap on the downhill section. Only really Trungell-Nagy would have the guts and the grit to stay with the Australian and give us the sprint finish. The Hungarian trying to push it right towards the end, but look at the afterburners being used there by Woodbury. A man who's been on the floor and felt defeated already this weekend after his fall on the bike in his semi-final, but he was not going to fall short on the final on Sunday. The Australian taking the victory. There will be a chance for him to celebrate as well. The medal ceremonies coming up, confirmation of the finish from the junior men. It's not a bad morning to set a tone, is it, with the two victories for the Australians, but also just we've seen two slightly different races. We've seen how, particularly on the run, in the women's run, you can take control, and if that kick works early, you can lead and be in charge. We've also seen from Jack Woodbury that if you don't get the kick right, you can really leave a few hangers on that are going to cause you a lot of problems later on.
Yeah, definitely two different races, and I think with that men's, that the packs coming together, that had a really big impact, didn't it? On we had such a larger group in the men's at the front of the run for that first lap and a half, until Woodbury really sort of pushed on, and Trungell-Nagy as well. They were the two main players on the run. But for Zombo Holber as well, that's one of his best results by a long way. I think he's only made a top 10 once in a Junior Cup. So to come away with a podium today, a big step up. I mean, that's sometimes what racing in front of your home crowd does, isn't it? It really raises you to a different level.
Yeah, we've seen so many times Hungarian athletes here in Tiszaujvaros just find an extra bit of drive, an extra bit of push at the right times that they needed. A very impressive result for Holber. Impressive setting as well, that's for sure. It's the bikes and belongings will be wheeled away. We'll have, of course, the elite women and men coming up later on this afternoon. Some big names that are taking place. Perhaps Songa Lehmann is the man who has everybody's hearts here in Hungary, just pumping for victory in the elite men, although Martin Kropko as well. It's a family name that they just breed triathletes in the Kropko family at this point, don't they? And after the success he's had in the Aquathlon World Championships, the under-23 winner at the Aquathlon World Championships this year, Martin Kropko will certainly hope that he can put his name in the hat. In the women's event, well, anybody stop one of the most dominant women of 2025, Lisa Tersch?
I mean, she's leading the World Championship Series rankings currently. She's already won a World Series this year, been on a podium already. It's going to be a really hard, very hard to bring her down. I mean, thinking back to seeing her in Valencia World Cup last year, where she came off the bike about a minute down. You thought, no way is she going to be able to bring this back, and she still won the race. So I think whatever position she's in today, she has the ability to win.
She, however, doesn't wear the number one in the elite women today. It's Selina Klamt, a fellow countrywoman who was really impressive in the semi-finals yesterday, that pips her at least to that honour. Is there going to be any point where you think that we'll see the two German women working together a little bit to try and remove themselves from everybody else? There are a few names up there. I mean, Erin McConnell's done a really good job to get herself in the number 3 spot. Not that it makes too much of a difference in terms of the overall outcome of the triathlon, but Barbara de Koning as well can really go on the bike, and a few other big names as well, and people that have had success here in the past. Jolien Vermeulen, Tilda Manson as well, with her impressive run form, find themselves right in the mix. And there's a strong British contingent as well that will be hoping to perhaps topple the two Germans.
Yeah, it's very tricky. I mean, Selina Klamt, she is a World Under-23 champion from a couple of years, but hasn't really kind of made her mark on the senior ranks yet. She's always there or thereabouts. She's had good results, but no big statement. So I think the fact she's come in, she had a good semi-finals yesterday. She's coming in wearing number 1. I think she'd be really keen to get at least a podium to prove that, yeah, this I was World Under-23 champ, but I'm here, I'm at the senior level, and I'm winning medals. Because it's hard for the Germans. There's so many good athletes. It's really hard to make yourself stand out amongst them. But, I mean, Lisa Tersch, I mean, things can go wrong. We don't know, but it's only a week until Hamburg. She's obviously using this race as prep for Hamburg next weekend, which we've seen her do before. We've seen her use that tactic before in the past World Cups as preparation. So I imagine she's not completely rested for this event. She'll be, you know, her big event is going to be next week in Hamburg. But even a completely unrested Lisa Tersch is still dangerous.
I was going to say, this just means that she could win it by 25 seconds rather than 35, maybe out there on the run, albeit the short course that we have here on the sprint distance in Tisza. You look at the men's field as well. I mean, it's top three dominated by the Hungarian names Zonga Lame and Martin Kropko and Benza Bicak. We've also got a few others that would certainly fancy putting their name in the hat. Jack Willis, some feel that perhaps he needs to start putting together some big results and some podiums with the strength of the young British contingent that are starting to come through the field right now. Bradley Course might be one to keep an eye on. Seth Ryder, the American, as well. There are a few that will perhaps come from slightly further back in the field, but are still fairly established names. And some exciting youngsters as well. João Nuno Batista, the brother of Ricardo Batista, will be one that plenty will keep an eye on where the Portuguese tri-suit is later on today.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a World Junior champ. He didn't do quite as well in his last year as a junior, 7th at the World Juniors last year, but he's a great swim biker and he'll always be in contention. He might not have that top level run yet to maybe win a World Cup, but he's definitely like that top 10 contender.
Surprising absentees as well when it comes to the men's race that we will get into later on today, of course. But I think there's 2 French names missing out on the start list that a lot of people would have expected to perhaps see lining up. Lachlan Jones as well, another one who has had a disqualification on the swim course yesterday in his semi-final. Of course, he had the frustration of an excellent swim and great work in Sadia last week before it all came crumbling down eventually with a DNF for Lachlan Jones. So it's a tough 7 days or so for him. The Australian won't be giving his opportunity to try and make it 3 gold medals for Team Australia. The gold medal is waiting, though, to be given out. Silver and gold, certainly one of them shining a little brighter than the other 2 in the Hungarian sun, with the medal ceremony hopefully just a few minutes away. Australian national anthem will be played out ahead of the Hungarians for both medal ceremonies for the junior women and junior men. Of course, around the park and around the weekend there's been plenty going on. You can just see the stage there in the background where there's been events and live music in the evening. We've had the cycle rides and the youngsters getting out on the course here in Tisza. The opportunity to take to the tarmac with the closed streets that may be problematic for some over the weekend, but I think overall it's taken in the positive way that it's certainly meant to.
I don't think it's problematic. I think it's just the excuse where this weekend you know that the triathlon is here. Triathlon is in town, and go and enjoy it. You're not going to go anywhere in your car, especially around the town that weekend.
Yeah, it's very much a weekend of packing the picnic basket with a few Hungarian delicacies and settling in the park on the sidelines and watching the swim and the runners come through. After the grueling run for the women earlier this morning, it's a chance to make a slightly slower and steadier walk up to the podium.
tisztelettel köszöntöm Önöket a 2025-ös Tiszaujvaros Junior Triathlon Európa Kupa női díjátadó ünnepségén.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the women's medal ceremony of the 2025 Europe Triathlon Junior Cup Tiszaujvaros.
Az eredményhirdetésen részt vesz dr. Koncz Zsófia, családokért felelős államtitkár, országgyűlési képviselő.
The awards will be presented by Dr. Zsófia Koncz, State Secretary for Families, Member of Parliament.
Kindl Gábor, a Magyar Triathlon Szövetség elnöke.
Gábor Kindl, President of Hungarian Triathlon.
Harmadik helyezést ért el, és ezzel az Európa Kupa bronzérmese Magyarország versenyzője.
In third place and the winner of the bronze medal, representing Hungary,
Kropko Jászmin.
Yasmin Kropko, the medal to put in the family vault. Might need a new vault as well, actually, the Kropkos.
Yeah, and older brother Martin will be watching, hoping he can replicate. If not this, maybe another couple of positions higher.
Helyezett, és ezzel az Európa Kupa ezüstérmese ugyancsak Magyarország versenyzője.
in second place and the winner of the silver medal, also representing Hungary,
Szobácsi Laura.
Laura Sobacci. Second place for her.
Yeah, she had a great race as well, being really up there in the swim too, really consistent, and we might see her at the Junior World Championships later this year.
Ezzel a
Looks like she has formed
2025-ös
to
Tiszaujvaros
better than what she did last year at those Junior World Champs, and 26 spots she had.
Ausztrália versenyzője.
gold medalist and the winner of the 2025 Europe Triathlon Junior Cup Tiszaujvaros, representing Australia,
Addison Housley.
Alison Houslip, though, takes the top step. The Australian. She'll certainly fancy repeating the feat when we get to Wollongong later on in the year. It's a bit of time between now and then. It's a long flight home for her as well tonight. I hope she's made room for the medal ceremony and sticking around for that.
Yeah, you'd hope so.
Not rush him to the airport straight after this.
Great way to fly home though, having coming in off a win.
Hölgyeim és uraim,
Successful European campaign for the young
a
Australian.
győztes tiszteletére hallgassuk meg Ausztrália nemzeti himnuszát.
ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the national anthem of Australia.
Kérem a magyar lányokat is lépjenek fel a dobogóra. A sajtónak
The Australian national anthem we're going to get used to, at least for this short time period, that's for sure, as the top three can take the top step together. Pose for the obligatory photos. It's a good time in the year as well, just to be finding some really strong competitive form at this level for the juniors. Here's Wollongong looming on the horizon.
Congratulations, ladies.
And holding your nerve at a big event like the one here in Tisza.
mindannyiótoknak, remélem.
Assuming all the athletes have referred to it as Tisza behind the scenes as well.
Yeah, Tisza, I think it's easier to say. Not that Tiszaujvaros is too hard, but yeah, just Tisza.
And it rolls off the tongue quite nicely, Tiszaujvaros. You just get the rhythm of it. It's not too bad.
Oh, it's just been around for so long, hasn't it? The race, so it's so much history here, and it's always a fun one for the athletes to come and do. And it's been many different forms over the year, with sprint distance for the last few years, but it's been up to Olympic. I think they've had super sprint here before as well.
Of course, it dropped down to the Euro Cup level and then made its return to the World Cup stage a couple of years ago. It's certainly a venue befitting a high caliber event. Not sure if necessarily it has the room for a World Triathlon Championship Series event here, to be honest, with everything that comes with that, but certainly, as we've said already, one of the best World Cup events on the calendar here. Plenty more of those on the horizon as well, of course, where we'll be keeping an eye on what happens very shortly on the 12th and 13th of July on the World Triathlon Championship Series stage, when we head to Hamburg for that one. TriathlonLive.tv bringing you the T100 Triathlon World Tour as well. That returns to London on the early part of August, and it's down to the French Riviera for the World Triathlon Championship Series and the T100 Series as well in late August. Still a lot to be decided, particularly, of course, in the men's competition on the World Triathlon Championship Series, with the absence of Alex Yee for the majority of this year, and Hayden Wilder and that incident in Japan 2 months ago now, a month and a half ago, just around about the time we were in Yokohama. Maybe some of these names will be gracing the World Triathlon Championship Series stage at the highest level and taking a podium later on in their careers. The junior ranks have done all right for them today, though, here in Tiszaujvaros. You can tell that Zomba Holber's not done this too many times because he wasn't sure whether to follow the medals or not, but he might get used to making this walk every so often.
Yeah, it's a big step up for him today. Perfect day to do it.
Szeretettel köszöntjük a díjátadáson Tóth Tamást, a Nemzetközi Triathlon Szövetség elnökségi tagját.
The awards will be presented by the World Triathlon Executive Board member from Hungary,
és Pap Zsoltot, Tiszaujvaros alpolgármesterét.
and the Vice Mayor of the town of Tiszaujvaros.
Harmadik helyezett, ezzel a kupa bronzérmese Magyarország versenyzője.
In third place, and the winner of the bronze medal, representing Hungary,
Holba Zsombor!
Zsombor Holba. Nice to get his name announced. I'm sure he'll be delighted with picking up a bronze medal here.
Második helyezett, ezzel a kupa ezüstérmese, ugyancsak Magyarország versenyzője.
in second place, and the winner of the silver medal, representing Hungary,
Trungel Nagy Zalán!
Zalan Tungelnagi taking the silver medal this time here in Tiszaujvaros. He looks too disappointed by it.
No, I was just thinking the same thing. He seemed pretty happy with his performance today. He had a good swim, he was in contention on the bike, and he was so close there at the end.
Győztese Ausztrália versenyzője.
Almost agonizingly close in the end to the man who's about to take the top step.
2025 Europe Triathlon Junior Cup Tiszaujvaros, representing Australia,
Jack Woodbury!
He's done it the hard way this weekend in Tiszaujvaros. Bumps and bruises yesterday, war wounds still being shown today. And a full-on battle right to the end. It came to Sunday's final, but a gold medal for the Australian. once again we'll have the national anthem of Australia.
A győztes tiszteletére hallgassuk meg Ausztrália nemzeti himnuszát.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the national anthem of Australia.
Kérem a magyar fiúkat, lépjetek föl Jack mellé, a dobogó legfelső fokára, a sajtónak
I don't know if Jack Woodbury's on the same flight as his countrywoman.
It's a good flight home.
Great celebration. That's one way to try and get the free upgrade to business class, isn't it, on the way home? Just a flash of the gold medal should automatically get you into any lounges at the airport, that's for sure.
Well, Woodbury's from Tasmania, so he's got an even longer trip home.
An extra one at the end. Well, he was as wild, but perhaps not erratic as the Tasmanian Devil today, Jack Woodbury, but he certainly had the rest of the field in a bit of a spin when it came to his impressive performance. We've got the elite women and men coming up just around the corner in about 2 hours' time here on triathlonlive.tv. We will leave you for the moment, though, with the celebrations of the juniors, as the men and women have been all conquered by the contingent from the Southern Hemisphere. Congratulations once again to Addison Houslip and to Jack Woodbury. The Australians stood on top above everybody else this morning in Tiszaujvaros.
Két ausztrál, 4 magyar. Hát még a zászlóképet se kellett cserélni. Lépjetek fel a dobogóra a fotósok miatt!
All right, we are kindly asking you to step up onto the podium, please.
Oké, ez a végeredmény juniorban. Bravo! Köszönjük szépen!
Thank you very much.
Hölgyeim és uraim, kedves közönségünk, tombolaszelvény bedobás triatlon butik a dísztéren, el ne felejtsék, hiszen este tombola sorsolás lesz 7-kor. Meringer Marci jön a színpadra fél 8-kor, fél 9-kor.